20 to 9, and families who lost loved ones in the Hillsborough disaster and the Manchester Arena bombing will be meeting the Prime Minister later.
They are concerned that the proposed Hillsborough Law, which will force public authorities to be truthful after tragedies, is being watered down and might not apply to security services like MI5 and MI6. Our reporter Tim Muffett has the story.
It'll help anybody out there who ever finds themselves up against powerful people.
The so-called Hillsborough Law has been welcomed by campaigners and families of those who've died in the most horrific circumstances. Promised by Labour in its 2024 election manifesto, it would force public officials to tell the truth during investigations into major disasters and public inquiries. We now know that after the Hillsborough disaster in 1989, police leaders spread false narratives, blamed Liverpool fans, and withheld evidence of their own failings. During the inquiry into the Manchester Arena terror attack in 2017, it was concluded that MI5 had not presented an accurate picture of events and had provided a false narrative about intelligence it received about the suicide bomber before the attack. The Public Office Accountability Bill, to give it its full name, would make misleading the public in such inquiries a criminal offence. A third reading had been due to take place today in Parliament, but that's been postponed until next week. It follows concerns being raised as to whether or not the new law would apply fully to individual members of the security services. There are claims the bill has effectively been watered down. Earlier this month, 5 families bereaved by the Manchester Arena attack wrote to the Prime Minister. They said, "You made a personal promise that you would bring in the law. We are now asking you to keep that promise in full by ensuring the new law applies to the security and intelligence agencies in the same way it applies to everyone else." Campaigners met the Prime Minister in Downing Street in September when the bill was first introduced. They're due to meet him again later today. Tim Muffett, BBC News.
We're joined on the programme now by Caroline Curry and Lisa Rutherford, who both lost their children, Liam and Chloe, in the Manchester Arena bombing, and by Pete Weatherby KC from the Hillsborough Law Now campaign group. Caroline, Lisa, if I could come to you first of all, you're due to meet the Prime Minister. What are you going to say to him today?
Well, first of all, we're here to support the Hillsborough Law. Myself and Caroline, along with some more bereaved families, today are going to go in there to make sure that he listens to our side and how we feel, having sat through inquiry. Sir John Saunders made sure, along with ourselves and our fight, to make sure that that they don't continue to lie and they don't put others through what we've been through. Yeah. I think, Caroline, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Had we left it, had our legal teams left it, the false narrative that MI5 presented at the time would have gone unchallenged. The fact that our legal teams, under our instructions, fought, and Sir John then insisted on speaking to the individual officers from MI5 is where the lies were uncovered. And MI5 cannot be allowed to continue to do that to other families. It's just not fair.
So, Lisa, you feel that if this Hillsborough Law really is going to have a duty of candour, of openness in future investigations, then the security services, MI5, MI6, have to be included in that. They have to answer for decisions they've made. Absolutely, yes. There's no doubt. You know, our lives, you know, are completely shattered and never to be the same again. And for them to have gone through inquiry with us for the length of time that they did, knowing that the information that they had was not correct and, you know, blatant lying as far as I'm concerned, how are they allowed to do that, and why would you not want to come into court and tell the truth? We said from the very beginning, it's about the learning. All we wanted was the truth. If you came in and you told us the truth,
we could learn, not ourselves, but everyone could learn from that and put things in place to make sure that these disasters and atrocities hopefully can be stopped and don't happen again in the future, where now I've got no confidence in our government, in
the security services.
In the security, in anything that is going to tell me that this won't happen again, because it will.
Pete Weatherby, you have been a huge part of creating this legislation. Why do you think it is now at the point that it is at? Why do you think it's paused now?
Well, I think there's a real culture of denial, and the security services think that they are above the law. What they did in the Manchester Arena inquiry was unconscionable. As Caroline and Lisa have just said, they ran an organisational false narrative, which meant they nearly got away with it and nearly got away from censure. And it's really important to explore what that means. What that means is there would be no change. Only by discovering failure can you deal with it. And it was only because we had a particularly good judge who said, well, maybe the corporate position is right and maybe it isn't, but I need to look behind it. Again, encouraged by the families and the legal teams. But it was only through that process that actually, after 6 years of running a false narrative, that the judge came to the conclusion that had MI5 acted on the 2 pieces of intelligence that they had, there was a realistic possibility that the bombing might have been prevented. Had they got away with hiding that fact, nothing would change, and that's the seriousness of it. And I think the government needs to stand up, and the Prime Minister needs to stand up and needs to say this has to be put right, and that the duty of candour that the government, to their great credit, has put forward in this bill across the piece with public authorities and public servants has to apply fully to the security services and those who work for them, subject, of course, to national security safeguards.
So, Pete, the Hillsborough Law is currently going through Parliament, and because of this issue, it's kind of been put on pause. It's really complicated, isn't it, when we talk about writing laws and making laws? But essentially, what do you want? What do the families crucially want to happen to this piece of legislation over the next few days?
Well, the word complicated is wheeled out too often, in my view. We've been working on this literally for 10 years. The Labour Party, to its credit, said that they would pass it. We've been assisting them for the last 16 months with a whole series of meetings. We've redrafted various parts of it for them. There's actually an amendment put forward by Ian Byrne MP, and it's cross-party, supported by most of the opposition parties and a whole raft of Labour MPs, which puts the problem right. And what we're asking the government to do is to adopt that amendment, put it right, and pass it on Monday, which is the date which we understand the bill is coming back.
Pete Weatherby, thank you very much indeed. And Caroline and Lisa, thank you for talking to us this morning and sharing your story. And this is what the government have had to say. They've said the Hillsborough Law will change the balance of power in Britain, putting a legal duty on officials to respond openly and honestly when things go wrong. This will apply to all public officials, including those in the intelligence services. We've listened to campaign groups and brought forward amendments to strengthen this while never compromising national security. We will continue to work with them, doing everything we can to make sure this legislation has the lasting legacy the families deserve.